Guys, everybody, welcome. My name is Steve Whitacre. I am the president of Trinity College. I'm one of the pastors at Sovereign Grace Church of Louisville. So for those of you that I haven't met, I look forward to meeting you. I hope you'll stick around for a minute or two afterwards so we could get acquainted. I want to thank you all for coming, for being here for this interest meeting about Trinity College. One or two pieces of housekeeping here. We're going to try to stay tight to 4 o'clock. I want to finish. We got a few things we're going to talk about, leave some time at the end for Q&A. So if you've got things you're wondering about, things you want to ask, even if we don't have time in that Q&A, I will stay for as long as we need to, and we can keep talking. I'm easy to find, although there are a lot of bald-headed pastors walking around, so it's easy to get us mixed up. Other piece of housekeeping that I want to make sure you know is we have a table of swag in the back of the room. Trinity College branded merch, and we're giving that stuff away. So I had to bring it all here. I could barely squeeze it all in the car. And if I have to take less of it home, that'd be fantastic. So would love for you to stop by that table, take stuff, take some with you. Okay, that would be really great. So Trinity College interest meeting. Now, just the sound of that alone could mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. And I am so glad you're here because you being here, you're expressing some sort of interest in Trinity College. And I want to make sure, for your sake, because it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to try to keep this interesting, try to keep things moving along, and just so nobody gets too dozy in the middle of the afternoon. So thanks for hanging here with us. So there's a few things we're going to talk about. I want you to hear from a few of our professors. I want you to hear from a few of our students. Rather than having them give testimonies, I'm going to show a video that we made with them giving their testimonies there. And there are a number of current and former students in the room. Many of them have on Trinity hoodies and some of them don't. I'll have them all wave and acknowledge themselves. And so you can also intercept them and ask them about their experience at Trinity College. Now, before we get started with these different kind of testimonies, I want to just explore a question with you for a minute. I read recently that there are about 1,000 Christian colleges or Bible colleges in this country. Most of them are very small. Most of them are a lot like what we're doing, trying to provide education that's theologically aligned with a church or a denomination. And you might ask, well, wow, if there's so many colleges, why would we start a college? We're in our third year of Trinity College. And I think that's a legitimate question. Why are we here? Why are we doing what we're doing? And there's a number of different ways to answer that question. And what I hope happens this afternoon is that we provide a few answers to that question. When I explain to people how we got started with Trinity College, I tell them, well, there are three things that I was looking for in a college for my kids. I wanted a college that was academically rigorous. A lot of colleges out there will do that. I wanted a college that was thoroughly Christian. I wanted something more than just chapel on Wednesday and a Bible class your freshman year. Finding a thoroughly Christian college is harder to do. Something where a biblical perspective is self-consciously woven into every corner of the curriculum, where professors are teaching from a Christian worldview. That's a challenge. And so we thought, okay, those two things together, you could still do it. You could still find some colleges like that. The third thing I wanted was a college that was meaningfully embedded in the life of a local church. And that's much harder to do. And I wanted to start Trinity College to take all this stuff that we've been hearing about this weekend so far, the stuff about passing on to you guys, to the next generation, the theological convictions and the commitment to application, to really live out the truth of the gospel. We began asking the question, why should what happens in the classroom, why would it not be meaningfully integrated to what happens at church every Sunday, at your community group, or at the singles meeting on Saturday night? Can't we bring these things together so that education and discipleship are part of the same effort in what we're doing? We said, yeah, I think we can. And that's how we got down the road of starting Trinity College. We wanted to bring these things together. So I don't want you just to take my word for it. I want you to hear from a few of our students about how this works. So this is in trying to explain, well, Why start a college? If there's 1,000 Christian colleges out there, why start a college for Sovereign Grace? This video, now a number of people who are on this video are in the room, and I know this is going to make them very uncomfortable, and they're going to think, does my voice really sound like that? And
my name is Tate, and I am a freshman at Trinity College.
Hi, I'm Callie. I'm a senior in high school, and I'm participating in Trinity College as a dual enrollment student.
My name is Jude, and I'm in my sophomore year at Trinity College.
Hi, my name is Haley. I am a dual enrollment student at Trinity College.
I'm Benjamin, and I'm a freshman at Trinity College of Louisville.
Hi, my name's Tori, and I'm a senior doing dual enrollment with Trinity College.
I'm Josh, and I'm a sophomore at Trinity College.
My favorite class at Trinity, it's so hard because there's so many wonderful classes to choose from.
My favorite class. Do I have to pick? I think that's an unfair question. I can't pick. It's impossible.
My favorite class at Trinity College has been Practical Theology.
My favorite class at Trinity College of Louisville has been the Great Books class.
Yeah, this class has been a kind of constant one to come up, but it's just so great. I mean, it's even in the name. Great Books has just been my favorite class.
So far, my favorite class has been Biblical Anthropology.
I think that Biblical Anthropology has helped me the most in analyzing big topics and issues that are being discussed in the US right now and across other first world countries.
The biggest lesson I've learned is to prioritize the local church and how it is important to be plugged into the church and to have a life that is, in one sense, being sustained by the local church.
Trinity College has helped me grow in my relationship with God by just showing me, like, reawakening a desire for God's word in my heart, because I am so often tempted towards a legalistic approach. I want to read the Bible just so I can be like, okay, I checked off the box, I'm done for today. But I see that it's so much more than that. It's actually it's a privilege.
One of the biggest lessons I've learned is not to draw a dichotomy between school and godliness, is that they aren't separate, and that being like, I want to be a wife and a mother and maybe a teacher, and then learning that everything at Trinity is going to help me do that well. To be a good wife and a mother and a good teacher, I'm going to have a good education that's centered on the gospel. So I think the biggest lesson I've learned is not to separate those two and think of it as school and then godliness and fun as if they're separate categories. Rather, the Lord wants me to find joy in my toil at school.
When it comes to student life, I've enjoyed getting time and fellowship with my fellow students and just learning with them, going through the same things with them, being able to talk about where we're struggling and where we need help from each other. Being there to support other people has been really encouraging too.
The single best reason I would give someone to come to Trinity College is that their education would be shaped by Christ-exalting information that will then enable them to take their place in the body of Christ, to serve God's people and ultimately serve God.
Even if it's just for the bridge year, I think having 1 year of intense study, being surrounded by the people that you're surrounded by godly people, is going to seriously help you as you seek to think through what you want to do with the rest of your life.
The reason I wanted to come to Trinity was because of the classical Christian education. I believe that liberal arts education is important because it is the greatest means by which we can account for all the diversity of education. It's not merely tied to a degree or something that you can obtain. Education, I think, largely today is seen as something that is a means to an end, something that I need to get through in order to do the job I want, acquire some prestige in life. But my belief is that education is authored by God and therefore is worthy to be studied in and of itself. And so I think that the greatest lesson I have learned from Trinity College is that education is a worthy pursuit because God is the author of it, and there is nothing mundane about it.
Well, that makes me want to enroll in Trinity College. Supper Club obviously is one of our most attractive parts of Trinity College. If you don't know what that is, Wednesday nights we have the entire student body over to our house for dinner. And it's a blast because, well, Mrs. Whitacre can flat out cook. So all the girls, every time they're like, yeah, we get to be together, we get to talk. And the guys are kind of like, what's Mrs. Whitacre cooking? They always want to know. You know, so that's definitely a highlight. Now, what I want to tell you about some of the other things you heard on this video is we are building a 4-year liberal arts program, building out a Bachelor of Arts program. So a 4-year bachelor's program. We're in our 3rd year, so we haven't even finished that yet. We're building it out as we go. Next year we'll have it'll be our first round of seniors. Lord willing, we'll graduate. So that's really encouraging. But one of the most versatile aspects of this, and one of the things that serves students probably best of all, is we take our freshman year of that 4-year curriculum, and we call it the bridge year. And so students can take that 1-year bridge year as a standalone curriculum. So that's a really great way for students who don't know yet what they want to do, or they might think, well, I like the sound of a small class size, but moving to Louisville for 4 years, do I want to do that? Maybe there's questions you haven't worked out yet. It's a great way to get started. The bridge year, we're going to talk in a minute about some of the courses that we cover and how those work. And one of the things that is really important to us in the bridge year is that we want to help students think through their callings and their vocation. How do you know what it is you're called to do? And so that gets woven into our curriculum. And I want you to hear about a couple of our classes. I'm going to come back around to vocation and calling in just a moment. But I want to begin, as we talk about curriculum, you hear, what are you going to learn? What do students learn in the bridge year? I want to start with Dr. Josh Blount. So he is a doctor. He got his PhD from Westminster Seminary, not far from here. And he teaches biblical anthropology. When I first set out a few years ago to begin crafting the curriculum for the bridge year, curriculum design, think, man, we can make this anything we want. We can teach anything on the planet, right? And what do we want to teach? One of the things I more than anything, I thought it would be so helpful if we could teach anthropology, if we can help young people understand what does it mean to be human. And as soon as I had that thought, I thought, I know just the man to do this. And I called Josh up and we had a conversation and he said, that sounds great. I would love to do it. And since then, his class has consistently been one of the most popular classes among our students. So I don't want to tell you too much about the class. We'll let him do that. So Dr. Blount, would you tell us why these students need biblical anthropology in their life?
Thank you, guys. 2 questions to start off with. First, how many of you were here at last year's interest meeting for Trinity College? Okay, good. Not most of you. How many of you are over here in the breakout I just did on mail and video? Okay, a little bit more. I'm going to begin with an introduction that I sometimes use. Don't want to overuse this if you've been hearing me teach on this repeatedly. The movie The Patriot by Mel Gibson. Not commending the entirety of the movie. Don't go say Mr. Blount said you could watch it. But there's a scene in it that captures something about why we do biblical anthropology. If you don't know the story, it's set in the Revolutionary War times, and Mel Gibson's character is a reluctant soldier who ends up fighting for the American side. And once he's convinced that the war is worth fighting, there's a scene where he goes and he's trying to recruit people to the American cause. He ends up at a backwater tavern in the wilds of South Carolina, and he and a friend walk in and they have a moment where they're looking, the place gets very quiet and everybody looks at them and they're wondering, are these the kind of people that are on our side or against us? And in the moment of silence, Mel Gibson looks out at the crowd and says, God save the king. There's another moment of silence, and then weapons begin to fly through the air, tankards, vegetables. They step out, shut the door, and say, I think we're in the right place. You want to produce the same reaction in modern society, walk into a coffee shop, God made men and women, and see how the room divides. This is probably the pressing frontline issue that we face as Christians in faithfulness, and the thing that will divide us from many of our peers. In many cases, will divide us from family members. But we don't want to approach that haphazardly or casually. We want to think carefully. What does the Bible say about what it means to be a human being? So our class, Biblical Anthropology, we divide it into 4 units, and we make our way through. Sometimes I feel like we try to step on as many landmines as possible in our current culture. We start with 8 weeks just on Genesis 1 and 2, working through the text of Scripture, foundational issues and what it means to be made in the image of God, and laying a biblical foundation for issues like body and soul. What does sin do to us? What is our creation of male and female? How does that relate to our identity? We lay that foundation through 8 weeks, and then we spend another 8 weeks looking at what are the primary pushback, the primary opposition to those doctrines in the modern world. And we spend those 8 weeks on a close reading of a book by Carl Trueman called Strange New World, exploring the roots of individualism in our age, the kind of thinkers that have shaped the thought of the modern world. It's a challenging read. It tells students we're going to read some people that have some really bad ideas, but we want to think carefully about them and evaluate them biblically. Then, if we haven't stepped on enough landmines, when we get to Unit 3, we talk about race and social justice. Because one of the challenges, you'll hear this, one of the pushbacks against a Christian vision of sexuality is the church changed its position on slavery and race. Maybe we should update our position on what we believe about marriage and sexuality. And to tackle that head on, we have to wrestle with the issues of race and slavery and our particularly American challenge with those topics. And then think through, what does the Bible say about a just society, and whose society, and what standard of justice, and how do we evaluate that? So we spend about 8 weeks on that topic. And then we end, in case there's anybody we haven't offended, we end talking about therapy and mental health. What does it mean to be a healthy human being? And how do we know that? And who gets the right to define what health is and how we achieve that? And what kind of competitors do we face in the modern world claiming that they know what's wrong with us and what we should be like when we're healed? And we spend 8 weeks probing that, in effect developing a biblical theology of sanctification, but in dialogue with all the voices claiming to define what ails us and what heals us. And in that year together, hopefully we'll grow in wisdom, that we can live faithfully with these challenges against our biblical vision, what God says about who we are as men and women. That's our class. I would love to have you in that class. It'd be a joy to spend an extended, unhurried period of time thinking together about these things. Like all the students on that video, I love the small class size too, because we can talk back and forth, we can get to know one another, pray for one another, and prepare ourselves for the battle that living in this age will bring to us. So that's my class. I hope to see you there next year.
One of the great ways that has worked out is we want to equip our students to not just understand the world that they live in, but to interact with people in the world and to be able to evangelize and persuade. A few weeks ago, well, it's probably 2 months ago now, Jim Donahue, one of the pastors here at Covenant Fellowship Church, he was in Louisville teaching a pastor's college class on evangelism. We had him over for supper club. Yeah, everybody's favorite. Had him over for supper club. And he just did what he does, which is talk about evangelism. And our students got all stirred up and they're like, can we do this? Can we go? So yes, so we organized a trip down to University of Louisville, and it was fun to watch the transformation because our students, many of them had never done anything like that, just walking up to people on a college campus and talking to them about Jesus. That's a little intimidating if you've never done it before. And so they all started out a little bit terrified and went down and did it and came back like, that was amazing. When can we do it again? And so I think a big part of that experience was the confidence that they had from Dr. Blount's class, from their classes on Bible, from their classes on logic and philosophy. We're equipped to interact with the world of ideas. And we're ready to go out. There's more we can learn, and there's more we're going to learn. There's more we're going to teach at Trinity College. But think, okay, we're being equipped to go out into the world and interact with these ideas. So that's been very encouraging. Another big idea and a big area that we want to equip our students to think about is to think biblically about math and science. And you might think, wait, I thought this was a liberal arts degree. Yes, it is. Some people might be in the room because they're like, I want to do liberal arts to get away from math and science. And one of the things that's important to know is that our approach to math and science is to think carefully about the philosophy, the theology, and the history of both math and science. And I've been praying for a couple of years since we started. Lord, lead me to a professor. Where am I going to find somebody who can teach a theology and a philosophy of science? That's so hard. And it was here last year, during a session, I stepped out to get a bottle of water or something and bumped into Ken Delage in the lobby. And Ken and I got to talking, and it was like the Lord told me, there he is. There's your guy. There's the answer to prayer. Because in that moment, I remember, I already know this about Ken. Ken was in the Navy and was responsible to run nuclear reactors on attack submarines. So he's a practitioner of real science, but he's a pastor, and he thinks carefully and biblically about, and like, so Ken, would you do this? Would you come teach? He said yes. And now we have a class that is ongoing right now on the philosophy and theology of science. And we have a forthcoming class in the future on mathematics as well. So Ken is going to come and tell us why young people should study the philosophy and theology of science. Please welcome Ken.
Yeah, so this is a joy to get to teach, and I'm so glad that Mr. Whitacre asked me to do that last year. The Lord had prepared me by, literally 3 weeks earlier, quitting another job, and I didn't know why. And then he walked up to me. Said, "Oh, I guess this is why." My wife confirmed it loudly. So, "What do you think? You should do it." But okay, I'll do it. It's a hard sell, right? Like, probably if you're choosing Trinity, you didn't take all the advanced science and math classes in high school. That's probably where you're at. There's a little bit of a hard sell to it. It's a little bit easier because it's required. So you have to come. If you're in Trinity, you have to take the class. So, but it's also, it's easier because you were made to worship. And creation is a big part of how we learn who our God is. I look out the window, not to distract you, but I see the snow. And that draws my heart to the Lord. Just think, he didn't have to make it beautiful. He didn't have to, but he did. Like, there's a study of the world. That's all science is. It's maybe a little bit systematized, but it's a study of the world to try to understand what's true. And that's not hard to get Christians excited about, because God reveals himself through the world. God reveals himself through his word. We know that. We treasure that. And we're not denigrating that. But what I think we often miss is that he created the world that we could know him thereby. There's a revelation of the attributes of God, his eternal power, his divine nature through the world. So Psalm 111 verse 2, great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them. And so I wasn't given this task by Mr. Whitacre, but one of my secondary goals is to rekindle a love for science and a study of science and math. We haven't gotten to the math class yet, but and that might look different for each person here. For some, that's going to be more on the engineering, techie side of things. For others, it's observing flowers and birds, and for others, it's the stars. But the Lord's created you to learn something of him in your study of the world. And so we get to talk about that. But what is a biblical philosophy of science? That's a big question. And I've got several 12-page research papers to grade that are attempting to answer that question. But let's start with it. So science is scary. It can be scary for Christians. Not only can it be difficult and maybe not your favorite subject in school, but it can also be scary because it can be perceived to be against religion. And Christianity and science are sort of in this war or something like that. And so we want to just step back and say, okay, below science, there's a philosophy going on. You think about maybe a simple definition of science. study of the world, figure out how it works, something like that. Okay. So what assumptions are baked into that idea? There are several, and they're philosophical assumptions. One is that there is a world that exists to study. Now, for us that are believers, that's really easy because Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But you get outside of a Christian worldview, and it's hard to prove the world exists. That's more for another philosophy class than for mine, but it's true. It's really hard to do. So the world exists. We try to study it. That means, are we capable of studying the world? Do we have the tools? Evolution has no way of suggesting that you could study the world. There's no coherent worldview that supports science from an evolutionary perspective. So can you even study it? And then, is there such a thing as truth? You know, if science is trying to figure out the truth of something, does truth exist? So what's beautiful is that a biblical philosophy of science shows that the Christian worldview provides the only coherent foundation for doing science. This is kind of shown historically. The only place where science was developed was in the Christianized part of the world. Historically, that's where it came from. And it grows up out of the soil of a biblical philosophy for all of life. So I'm excited about this because I think it's one of the best ways to be equipped to take the sting out of and the fear out of the science arguments that are out there. And we'll get to some of the actual arguments, evolution, creation, whatever, but so much of it is just like, if we just step back and say, how do you even know about truth? We find that we're standing on the most solid ground that exists. And so excited to continue this class with my students, and I hope to have many more the next time we roll through this. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks.
That we've now hit on two major areas of dispute out in the world, right? What does it mean to be human? What is science? And that's intentional because we want students who are discerning and wise and prepared. Not only, we want students to have the convictions in their own hearts, to be settled on these things, to have an internal sense of confidence and even cheerfulness that I'm ready to go into this battle. But we also then want them to be equipped for the cultural maelstrom that's out there. There's a war going on out in the world. There's a storm out in the world, we could say. And we want our students to be equipped to enter into that, to give a defense for the hope that they have. And so it would be good. It would be a really good exercise to leave class and just have that internal sense of conviction. But how much better now to be equipped to go and be persuasive and to win people over. And so if we had more time, I would have the lovely Mrs. Whitacre share with you about her literature and writing classes, how through the work of reading great literature, we're learning the foundations of language, learning how does language work. We're learning where do ideas come from and how are they expressed at different periods of history in and through great literature. And then rhetoric is the art of good people speaking well. And so how do you learn to communicate persuasively to others so that we can take all of this stuff that we're learning and go out there in the world and Lord willing, by the power of the Spirit, win people to Christ. And so literature and rhetoric are really substantial pieces of our curriculum as well. And if you have questions about that, please come up and talk to Mrs. Whitacre afterwards. She would love to tell you more about it. A big addition that we've got coming in that realm is in the next year, we're going to be starting something we're going to call the Writers Guild. One of the things that I love about your generation is that there are so many of you who are very creative. God has given you fantastic creative abilities. And I've met many young people who aspire to be writers or other sort of creators of content, and that artists, musicians, all sorts of things. And we want to encourage that. And we want to provide an avenue for instruction, for mutual encouragement, for sharpening one another. And so there will be more information coming out about that soon. You can ask Mrs. Whitacre about the Writers Guild. We're very excited about that. We don't want to neglect musicians. And so next year we'll be starting a class called Musica. We're calling it Musica because simply to call it music would be too narrow. Music is a fantastic subject. It's a wide and broad subject. And in the ancient world, philosophers would think of music as something embedded into the very fabric of the universe. They looked at the heavens, and the way they thought about astronomy, they connected to music. They understood music to be a mathematical art, and they lumped it in together with teaching mathematics and geometry, interestingly enough. And so we're gonna be starting a class that provides our well, it'll be for everybody, but we're gonna think about the history of music. We're gonna learn music theory together, do some music appreciation, maybe get exposed to different kinds of music, and Lord willing, also have the opportunity for some vocal performance. And some people are like, yes, oh no, and we're gonna help with that. All right, so don't be too concerned. So that is all coming. The last thing I want to tell you about, I said I would come back around to the idea of calling and vocation. So for students who stick around for the entire 4-year program, your junior and senior year, you enter what's called the Center for Christian Vocation, which is an aspect of Trinity College. We want to prepare students who are getting a liberal arts degree now to go out in the world and take that into your respective callings as men and as women, whatever God has called you to do, and to be able to apply that education into your callings as men and women. And I keep saying that, not just young people, but as men and women. One of the things that I think sets Trinity College apart from those 999 other colleges that exist is we are trying to think very deliberately about how to train young men and young women, how to shape young men and young women for their callings, for Christ and for the church. And almost every other college I've looked at, they wouldn't touch this. This is the third rail. They believe in an educational egalitarianism. What I mean by that is they just, men, women, right through the same mill, they spit out the other side with no educational difference. Well, we believe that every one of you has a telos. You have an end. God has made you for something. And young men, God has called you to lead, to provide, to protect. He's called you to be men, and that should look a certain way in your life, in your family, and in the church, and out in the world. Young women, God has called you to maybe to be wives and mothers, to be helpers, to be nurturers, to encourage the work of leadership, to do all sorts of things, and to train the next generation. And so the way that you now take hold of this education and live it out in the family, in the church, out in the world, that's going to look different than how young men do that. And so that Center for Christian Vocation is going to be leading you in that direction and helping you. Junior year, students will do a vocational internship that will prepare you for that next step, whatever God has called you to in the future. Senior year, a vocational thesis. That's a project that could take a lot of different forms. If you are an aspiring author, that could be some kind of writing project. It could be a research paper. It could be, if you're a musician, maybe record an album. There's a lot of possibilities for that, and look forward to customizing those options with those of you who come and do it. But this emphasis on calling is not only for upperclassmen, it's also for those who join the bridge year. And so we want all of our students to be equipped to think carefully about vocation. What are the callings that God has called you to? Most of the young people in this room, you're probably 17, 18, 19, 20, somewhere in there. And probably most of the big decisions that you'll make in life that will set the trajectory for who you are in your life, you're going to make in the next 5 to 10 years. You're going to make decisions about who you're going to marry, what you're going to do, where you're going to go to church, where you're going to live, who your friends are going to be. And that is going to shape who you are. And all those decisions are going to come at a time in your life when you're least prepared to make those decisions. You're young. You don't have much experience yet. There's a lot of wisdom the Lord wants to put in you, but that's out in the future. So a big part of what we want to do is help you think through, how do you discern God's callings? I say it plural, God's callings on your life. What are the vocations that God has called you to. So we want to equip you and prepare you for that. So those are different aspects of Trinity College that we want you to be aware of, to be prepared for. I want to give you just a couple of steps we could take, kind of next steps if you want to know more, and then we have a couple minutes left for Q&A. So if anything I've said is intriguing to you and you're thinking, I want to learn more about this, what do I do next? Well, there's a lot more information on our website, trinitycollegelou.com. A lot more recordings of talks like this on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@trinitycollegelou. And so there's a lot more information you can get there. You could also come talk to us. Talk to me, talk to my wife, Nicole, talk to Josh, talk to Ken. We would love to have these conversations with you. And being here is not your last chance. My business card is back there on the table. It's got my cell phone, my email on it, and get in touch with me. I every week I've got at least one, sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 conversations with people, conversations with students or pastors or parents about how could Trinity College serve you. You could also follow along with us. Nicole and I have started a podcast called Vocatio. That's the Latin word for vocation. See what we did there. And we have this on Apple Podcasts, and we also video it, and we have those recordings on YouTube. And these are conversations about Christian calling for college students. We're both educators. We have teenagers and 20-somethings of our own. We are talking all the time about issues that young people are thinking about and facing. And we finally just said, what if we just hit record and recorded some of these conversations and hope that they serve people? So you could find those. We also, if you're curious about Trinity College and you're wondering, like, what is this really like? Come for a visit. You can either come to Louisville and hang out with us for a couple of days, or you can even just sit in on a class. All of our classes are connected over Zoom because we have some students who join from a distance. And so you can just sit in on a class with us. You don't have to say anything. We're not going to put you on the spot, make you answer questions. But that would be a great way to get to know us and to learn more about what we're doing. So we have just a couple minutes left. Are there questions that I could try to answer for you about Trinity College? Okay. Yes?
What are you doing about history classes?
What are we doing about history? Great question. Okay, so I should give you a quick rundown on the bridge year classes because this will help answer that question. So the bridge year consists of 5 classes. You've already heard about biblical anthropology. I teach 2 of those classes. I teach a class on biblical interpretation. In the fall, we do biblical theology. In the spring, we do hermeneutics, how to interpret the Bible. I teach a New Testament Greek class. We have another professor named Mr. Williamson. Reed Williamson teaches logic and philosophy. So what are big ideas? How do we think clearly? And then the lovely Mrs. Whitacre teaches literature and writing. And so for our bridge year class, the literature classes that she's teaching will touch a little bit on history, but most of the history classes that we teach are going to come in your sophomore through senior years. And the way it works is if you stick around for a 4-year program, after you've done that bridge year class, you step into a 3-year rotation of classes. And none of those have prerequisites. So we lump together. Our sophomores, juniors, and seniors take classes together. And so, yeah, it's fun because there's different ages in there. They all know each other. And so we're working our way through ancient, so 3-year cycle, ancient, medieval, and modern. And so that'll be ancient, and medieval, and modern history and philosophy. And so Mr. Williamson will teach a good bit of that, and ancient, medieval, and modern literature and rhetoric. And Mrs. Whitacre teaches that. So we're really eager for our students to understand history. It's so vital to see, where did these ideas come from? What's happened in the past? How did we get here? That helps us understand our world so much better. Yeah, good question. Good. Yeah.
What year do you think the music class will be in?
Yeah, so that's going to be that's one of those sophomore, junior, senior, part of that rotation. So if you are going on to get a 4-year degree, you would take it in some rotation. We're going to do it next year. So that would, some of our students who are already in the program, that'll hit them in different years. But it would just depend on when you came into that 3-year rotation. Yeah, good question. Good. Yes.
What type of books would you do in the writing and literature class?
Mrs. Whitacre, what types of books would you do in the writing and literature class? Would you like to answer that, or you want me to take a swat at it?
Sure, go right ahead.
Oh, dear.
Bridge year, and then there's the other 2 years.
Okay, I'm going to say stuff, and then she's going to say, no, that's not it. This is just I'm giving her a minute to think. So it's so much easier to correct what somebody said wrong than just start. So we want to both, so think about those 3 periods, right? Ancient, medieval, modern, right? So we want students to access some of the greatest literature of all time in those 3 categories. So we might go to the ancient world and we might look at epic poetry like the Aeneid, or in the medieval period, of course, Beowulf. Of course, we're going to read Beowulf because Beowulf is one of the greatest Christian stories of all time. And even people who read it in high school, like you cruised through it. You didn't really read that. There is so much left of mine, and Mrs. Whitacre is going to hold your hand, and you're going to see things you just never even knew were there. And then in modern literature, I don't know, maybe what, Jane Austen? We're going to read Moby Dick? She's like, no, please don't make us read Moby Dick. I love Moby Dick. I haven't been able to persuade Mrs. Whitacre to get into that. Okay, so what else? What else?
No, that's great. Yes, the first year in the bridge year is an introduction. So you fly through all of literature from Homer to Shakespeare.
Shakespeare.
And then a little Agatha Christie at the end for fun. So that's the first year.
So
and then
good.
the next 3 years, we're taking it by those time periods and understanding literature in the context of the history of ideas and what's going on.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Okay, good.
That's right, yeah. I want to take that class. Good. All right, time for one more. Any other questions? Okay. I said I would get you out of here by 4 because it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so we're gonna wrap up here. Just a reminder, we got a table full of swag. We'd love for you to take some stuff, all right? Because whatever you don't take, we're gonna put down in the lobby, and you know that it's like piranhas attacking that thing. It's all gonna be gone. So get it now while you can. Thank you that's your reward and our way to say thank you for coming. Again, I mentioned my business card is on there with my cell phone, my email address. We'll be here all day today. Tomorrow, we'll stay as long as you like. If you have questions, we would love to talk with you. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here, and enjoy the rest of Relay. Oh, everybody who either is or has been a student at Trinity College at some point, would you raise your hand? So just look around the room. If you got questions, look at all these people that have done it before. So grab one of them and be like, how awesome was it? And they will tell you.